Hey guys, I'm finally back from my Oregon. You know, I'm still on vacation for about a day and a half. And yeah, so I've already finished playing Final Fantasy VII Remake on PC through Steam. And well, I will admit, I do like the overall visual graphics, like the overall current Marte visuals. However, I still prefer the original because that's what I grew up with. And honestly, the original is much better. It's more fluid. There's not much lag and everything. And honestly, I just find that this, to me, honestly, it makes a lot more sense to just play with how the original story intended you to play. Whereas, first you get to see, the whole entire thing with the live stream, and then all of a sudden, it shows you, Aerith, walking or something or whatever. And then, of course, it pulls up to the train, and then that's where Cloud gets off, and then... But to me, honestly, when I played the remake, I kind of didn't like the way with, like, how you are consistently, like, battling soldiers, like, one after another over and over, when you should actually have Barrett joining you, like, right after you enter the portion of going towards the reactor. That to me makes more sense. But don't get me wrong. I still, I won't, I'm not going to deny that the graphics are awesome. The gameplay is, honestly, is the drawback, okay? To me, honestly, I prefer turn-based over just the normal linear style of play in the remake. Because to me, honestly, there are certain JRPG games where the actual single player role playing adventuring thing works well, okay? Like a good example, Tales of Berseria. That works well. However, Final Fantasy VII Remake kind of really doesn't do well, okay? Honestly, I prefer turn-based in terms of Final Fantasy because, to me, that's what really matters. I mean, I grew up playing a lot of turn-based games, minus, Zelda and some of the other ones, because I know a lot of the games I grew up with, not all of them had turn-based mechanics. Banjo-Kazooie is a great example. That's not really a turn-based, but that's just an adventuring style RPG by Rareware back in the day, which are pretty much no longer what they once were, okay? And to this day, I still find that, Square Enix is not what they used to be back in around the early to mid-2000s. I'm sorry. That's just not who they are anymore. Like, I mean, I honestly find that all the OG Final Fantasy guys that helped develop like Final Fantasy X are pretty much gone. Like, literally. Some of them have already joined other studios, and some of them have probably retired, and so on and so forth. But honestly, at the end of the day, I just prefer the original Final Fantasy games, like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, and Final Fantasy X. I mean, Final Fantasy Dirge of Cerberus, I played a little bit of that, but honestly, it was okay to me at the time. I never really bothered completing it. Final Fantasy 13, I played a little bit of it, but honestly, it's still just, I don't know, it still just wasn't my thing, even though I kind of felt like the beginning part was kind of weird, because I forgot one of the female characters in the game that I think joins your party, but I forget, and I just found her kind of weird. And then, I never played Lightning Returns. I never played that. 10, so yeah, 10 I did play. 10-2 I did also play. Although I never really completed 10-2, but it was kind of interesting. And the fact is that, you play as Yuna and you're performing like some sort of like massage for one of the main villains. And I don't know, it was kind of weird and awkward, but at the same time, hey, it's whatever. Okay? But yeah, honestly, 15 was meh. It was an okay game, okay? Minus that one ginormous palace that you went to like at the very kind of like towards the end of the game. That was actually really cool. I will admit that, and actually seeing oh my god, that water type of summon. Oh my god, I'm trying to think of the name now. It'll come to me. If it doesn't end up coming to me soon, before the end of this video, I apologize. You guys can leave a comment regarding that one that I'm trying to think of. But yeah, it was like a water-based type of a monster that came out, and Noctis had to basically, try and rescue his bride-to-be or whatever. And yeah. But other than that, that was all I kind of felt like. Some of the, I mean, there were some interesting mechanics in Final Fantasy 15, but still, to me, I still just take 7 and number 10 over all the other Final Fantasy games in the series. Okay, the original Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 10 are are the games I take over everything else. Okay, honestly. Okay, hell, I would probably take Tales of Berseria over a Final Fantasy VII Remake, okay? To me, that is cool because I love the story for Final Fantasy VII. For Tales of Berseria. I love the story for Tales of Berseria because, one, the story makes sense, okay? It makes complete sense. Final Fantasy VII Remake, the story is so convoluted, it's all over the place, okay? Like, Sephiroth shouldn't make an appearance till after Barret, Cloud, and Tifa go into the Shinra building, and then that's when, they see the President Shinra, like, all of a sudden, like completely dead with Sephiroth's sword. And then that starts the whole thing with Sephiroth. That's the story. But for some reason, they just end up, like, showing him, like, during the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes of the actual game in Remake. And to me, that kind of, like, pretty much just destroys the whole entire thing of what Final Fantasy VII is. Final Fantasy VII is a story that's basically talking about how Cloud how Cloud makes his way over to Midgar after the events of Crisis Core. Then of course, he joins Avalanche, destroys the first Mako reactor made by Shinra. Then, of course, he makes his way back with Barret and Avalanche over to 7th Heaven. And then that's the whole entire thing, and then eventually they end up recruiting, Red 13 and Aerith in their party, and then that's when they go off in adventure. See, to me, that makes the story a lot of sense. That actually gives the whole entire story much more sense than the way how you guys, who are Final Fantasy Remake conniving bastards that kind of think, oh yeah, this story, yeah, sure, it's telling in a little different way, but it's still, it's still Final Fantasy. No, it isn't. Wake up and smell the ashes. Seriously, it doesn't make much sense. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry if I'm like desecrating your beloved, oh, I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's the best game ever. It's so much better than the original. Why do you care? Why do you care and make horror about the original? The original is just so outdated and pixelated. It makes no difference. I love the remake. I love the quality. I love the gameplay. Shut the fuck up and open your eyes. Literally. There's so much, like, I've already experienced a little bit of lag, even after playing it at 60 frames per second on my PC. That's how kind of annoyed I kind of am with Remake. I love the original. The original makes more sense. The gameplay is fluid. Sure, it has that 1990s, graphics, but that's how 64-bit games were at the time. That's how, like, 6 to 64-bit games were at the time. Because those were the early days of gaming. Hell, if you look at Super Mario 64, if you look at a game like that, that is 64-bit. That's why Nintendo named it the Nintendo 64, because of its 64-bit graphics. That's just the way how it is. I mean, hell, even back during the PlayStation 2, like, some of the games or most of them were about 64-bit. Until you got to, modern day era games, where now it's like a lot of developers can now add stories in their games. But to me, the two things that matter to me are the gameplay and the story. If the story doesn't make sense to me, I'm not going to play it. Okay? Now, if a story, let's take Tales of Graces, F, for example, okay? It all relates to around friendship, okay? It all relates to around friendship. So the first person, the two characters that start out in the world of Grace's F are pretty much Asbel and I think his name is shoot, I forget his name now. It's either Albert or something. Anyways, so the two go up on Launt Hill, which is basically a hill right by their actual villages, and then they encounter a girl who later, as you find out, is actually a humanoid, not an actual person. And then eventually, throughout the whole entire thing, they then meet up with a Prince Richard, who pretty much lives in a really cool, awesome kingdom nearby. And so they end up, meeting up with him at his place for a little bit, and then that's when the events start occurring. That's when the actual event of everything that happens from start to finish throughout the whole entire game happen. Lambda possesses Prince Richard, even though Prince Richard and Asbel and the gang don't realize it at the time. And then flash ahead to about 7 to 9 years, or 3 years, or 7 years, whatever. Okay, flash forward to there, okay? Now, you can clearly see that, yes, Asbel is an adult, and then, of course, he ends up meeting up with his childhood friend. He then meets up with Prince Richard, but then afterwards, eventually later, you find out that Richard is not really Richard, because he's possessed. He's possessed by Lambda, who is basically this evil villain. Because, obviously, there's this another form of people. And these people were basically what made Lambda who he is. And they come from a planet called Vodra. And Vodra are basically these scientific researchers who pretty much made both the girl, which her name was Sophie, but actually it turns out her real name is actually Protosace, and Lambda. And the reason why Lambda turned out to be evil in the first place was because the fact is that everybody, minus the person who made him, were treating him like shit. And so eventually he came down to Asbel's planet and then started wreaking havoc, and he wanted to take over the world. There you go. That makes a lot more sense of a story. But if you look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, it really doesn't make really much sense of a story. You people need to question the story, okay? And I don't care what your whole premise is. Hate me all you want to. I don't give a shit. But I'm going to say this to you now, okay? Listen to this. The story to Final Fantasy VII Remake does not make any sense, and it doesn't follow the events that happen after Crisis Core. Seriously, go on YouTube and watch from start to finish Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, okay? Watch Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, and then come back to me after you realize, oh shit, you know what? Anime Core was right. The story for Remake really does not make any sense. Now I see, like, what he's getting at, but I do love, the overall graphics and the modern day graphics and the gameplay for Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's the reason, why I'm getting it, but I can kind of understand where Anime Core is coming from, because he's actually explaining a lot of things about the story that don't make much sense. And maybe we should actually start questioning Square Enix because of what they're doing. See? That's what I'm getting at. But yes, I know everybody hates me for criticizing Final Fantasy VII Remake, but you know what? I don't care. I don't care. I like the original, okay? The original is a full, entire, complete story, okay? You don't need to worry about, having to wait for part 2 or part 3, because guess what? If you play the original, everything in Final Fantasy VII is complete. It has all 3 parts if you play the original. It has part 1, part 2, part 3. There you go. And you don't need to worry about the remake. Hell, if you don't really care much for Steam, go get yourself here's 2 things you could do. Either get yourself an emulator for PlayStation 1, or just go on Amazon or search somewhere for an actual refurbished PS1 and play it. Or, if you still have a PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3, go ahead and try out Final Fantasy VII, the original, on there, okay? I guarantee you will not be upset. Sure, the graphics may look, still 64-bit, but that's how they were created. That's how Final Fantasy was back in the day. Now, if you were born in the year, after 2000s, then maybe that's your problem. Maybe that's because you never got to experience what Final Fantasy VII was like back during the 1990s. Seriously. So yeah, I'm done beating this horse to death. And you know what? Criticize me all you want, I don't fucking care anymore. I don't care. Okay? And I know, yes, I understand Final Fantasy Rebirth, which is Crisis Core, that's coming out this winter, which, yeah, I'm going to be happy to play it, because it does actually have the same gameplay mechanics, even though it was on PSP at the time, but now it's coming to modern-day consoles. So, yeah, that I'm actually looking forward to. But for the remake, I'm sorry, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. The only 2 things I like are pretty much the overall graphics, and I think that's pretty much about it. Story and gameplay, I don't really care much for. I'm sorry. Other than that, yeah. So I'm sorry if I pissed off a lot of you guys who are such huge fans of this whole Final Fantasy VII Remake bullshit, but I don't care anymore. I'm done with Square Enix. I don't care about Square Enix. I don't care if Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out on the PS5, because I don't care about PS5. I really don't care. Okay, if Sony had actually put out, a more, a quadruple amount of PS5s in store that you can actually buy and not have to worry about like waiting constantly for a new shipment, fine, I probably think I would, but honestly, at this point, I just enjoy playing games on PC. I can play games on any emulator I want to, because it's my choice. As a PC gamer, you have a choice of what you want to do with your life. You have a choice of what games you want to play, and you don't have to and plus, not to mention, you're not limited to only, just one store. You can buy games from any store, and you can even actually get games at great discounts compared to, to the PlayStation Store. Which, by the way, Sony's moves for shutting down like the PlayStation Vita store and some of the others, I'm sorry. I'm not a supporter of that. I'm sorry. So yeah, hate on me all you want. I don't care. But yeah, that's pretty much gonna wrap it up. So yeah, if you seriously have a major disagree with me, feel free to just hit that dislike button. But if you actually agree with what I have to say on the matter, definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and click the bell icon. I am finally back, so I'll be uploading more content on a weekly basis. And probably for tomorrow, to seeing probably a Let's Play for probably Tales of Arise, possibly, because overall story to that game are pretty cool, and I actually like the gameplay for that one. I am gonna do a new Let's Play for Tales of Berseria, so that'll come up as well. I'm almost finished with Tales of Grace's F, so you'll look forward to seeing that. Thanks to the power of an emulator, which I can actually play. I can actually play games on. And plus, you know what? Here's the one thing I'm going to leave you guys with. Because since I have a PC, I can download emulators, and I'm allowed to play game ROMs from any source that I want to. Okay? Now, if you would rather prefer not to do that, that's your choice. My choice is I want to play games on emulators, so I'm free to do that. And I don't care what anybody says to me. I don't care anymore. Fuck you, and fuck your beliefs on how you think that that downloading emulators is illegal. Oh yeah? Well, guess what? Your whole entire thing with just buying games and how have you ever questioned yourself how you can actually play like a lot of good games on your current consoles, like all the old games on your current consoles? Yeah, I didn't think so. Except maybe if you have Game Pass, you probably can. But other than that, that's it. But yes, you can also join my my Discord. The link to that is in the description. And of course, everything else, yeah, just, come back for more, awesome content over on my channel. This has been, Anime Core, 85, I think. Yeah, 85. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.